The greening project that is being proposed for the Trent University Peterborough campus is the succession of woody plant species after large-scale invasion and destruction of ash tree varieties present on campus due to high predation rates of the emerald ash borer. The protected and non-protected natural and forested areas around campus are home to large quantities of ash trees that are often grouped together. The predation of these species would leave large gaps in canopy cover and reduce the natural diversity of forest composition. Assisting with succession of woody plant species after these die-off events have occurred will have benefits for both environmental and aesthetic or recreational values of the impacted areas. This project will also help the university formulate a plan for similar events that occur in other regions of the world, which can be used as an alternative to expensive and often ineffective methods of protection. The emerald ash borer is a species of wood-boring beetle that is invasive to Ontario. It is native to Asia and is thought to have been spread accidentally to North America in 2002, starting in the United States of Ohio and Michigan. The emerald ash borer predates all types of ash trees, white, blue, green, black, etc., by boring into the trunks of the trees to lay eggs and consume the leaves of mature trees. The life cycle of the emerald ash borer is 2 years, in which they can cover distances up to 9.8 kilometers. Impacts of forest ecosystems include altered understory composition, spread of invasive species, large ash tree die-off events, and increased coarse woody debris. Attempts to eradicate the emerald ash borer started in 2003 but were called off because of economic and technological constraints that made it impossible at the time. In a study by Poland, Chen, Koch, and Perswan in 2015, identified the economic cost of emerald ash borer invasions in American timberlands was approximately $282.25 billion US. Biological control methods of the emerald ash borer have been studied through the feeding habits of woodpecker species that predate the invasive species. This natural biological control method has a large range of effectiveness, from 0 to 99% larval mortality in infected trees. Another biological control method is the dispersal of parasitoid species that predate the emerald ash borer, although parasitism rates are generally low. One chemical control that has been identified is the use of green or purple colored sticky traps that are placed in the open or in the canopy of trees to attract emerald ash borer and trap them before they can cause damage to the trees. Local studies and management plans for the invasive emerald ash borer have been developed by various townships and cities, including Peterborough, Kitchener, Cambridge, Guelph, York Region, Whitby-Oshawa, Simcoe, Lindsay, and Waterloo. This shows that the emerald ash borer is present in Ontario and has been spreading rapidly. These management plans identify the problem and severity of the emerald ash borer and its potential impacts to local environments that are dominated by ash tree species. Although this research does not focus on stopping the spread of emerald ash borer, it is important to understand the current situation and identify areas which are likely to be highly predated by the emerald ash borer. With this knowledge, a plan for succession after invasions can be developed and spread to communities that cannot afford to go through the costly application of pesticides or removal of infected trees. This is beneficial as it can be used to reduce the returning presence of the emerald ash borer. 2 research zones have been identified for this greening project, based on information from the Trent University Ash Density Map and work on a previous community-based research project regarding adaptive planning for the emerald ash borer. These research zones have high predation potential due to their high densities of ash trees. The first zone is in the southwest corner of the Wildlife Sanctuary Nature Area and is primarily dominated by buckthorn and ash varieties. This zone is home to the highest abundance of ash trees on campus, which means it is at the highest risk of negative environmental impacts due to the emerald ash borer. The southwest corner of the Wildlife Sanctuary Nature Area is also comprised of tree species including black locust, large-tooth aspen, trembling aspen, red cedar, and Stotts pine. The second zone in the northwest edge of the Lady Eden Drumlin Nature Area. This zone is dominated by buckthorn and ash trees, as well as abundances of lilac, Manitoba maple, ironwood, and Scots pine. There is a high diversity of species in different stages of natural succession, ranging from saplings to mature trees. Both of these study zones are used heavily for outdoor recreation, including hiking and dog watching, which shows that aesthetics of wilderness and naturalness are valued by visitors that come to immerse themselves in nature. These zones are also used for undergraduate and graduate research in environmental monitoring and conservation activities, as well as workshops provided by local interest groups. Work within these zones is key to uphold and enhance the values that users seek in natural areas. The research design will consist of four 20 by 20 meter transects in each of the two study zones, in which four different solutions to the succession of woody plant species after invasion from the emerald ash borer will be tested. The tests that are conducted in the four transects will be the same for both study zones, as to compare the two zones and homogenize the design of any long-term monitoring and maintenance. Research in Transect 1 will consist of an area of natural succession without invasive species mitigation. Research in Transect 2 will consist of an area of natural succession with invasive species mitigation. Research in Transect 3 will consist of an area of human-assisted succession without invasive species mitigation. And research in Transect 4 will consist of an area of human-assisted succession with invasive species mitigation. The main invasive species that would be mitigated in transects 2 and 4 is European buckthorn, which has been identified as the most dominant plant species next to ash trees in these two study zones. Buckthorn crowds native shrubs, herbs, and saplings, and creates competition for space and resources amongst other developing plant species. Methods for the maintenance of European buckthorn by humans includes controlled underbrush burning, hand picking of younger plants, cutting or girdling of larger, more established trees and subsequent clipping of emerging resprouts, or cutting plants down to stumps and treating the stumps with chemical herbicides. Controlled burns are not feasible for these areas, as they are used daily for recreation purposes and they are located too close to the university and other Peterborough infrastructure to permit safe burns. Cutting plants down to stumps and applying chemical herbicides has been identified as the least impactful method to human, plant, and animal activities in the zones. The chemical herbicide Trimec will be used due to its status as a selective herbicide, meaning that it will kill European buckthorn without negatively impacting other woody plant species. This is an important consideration in this study because the conservation of native plant species is integral to promote an accelerated and high degree of succession to fill gaps in the canopy. This greening project will take place over a time span of 10 years, with much of this time being dedicated to long-term monitoring and maintenance, since succession takes a long time and can be influenced by a number of external and internal factors. The first year of this project will be dedicated to extensive research on past studies of forest canopy gaps and succession of woody vegetation, the emerald ash borer and its impacts on community composition, native species identification for the Peterborough area, and the development of relationships with local stakeholders such as Trent University faculty and students, and environmental interest groups such as Green Up, Sustainable Peterborough, and the Ontario Public Interest Research Group of Peterborough. This research will be done online through extensive literature reviews, as well as in the field at the identified research zones in the Wildlife Sanctuary Nature Area and the Lady Eden Drumlin Nature Area. This research will be used to identify best management practices and an impact mitigation plan for the project. The second and third years of the project will be dedicated to establishing transects, posting signs to educate the public of the ongoing project, planting species in transects with assisted succession, which are transects 3 and 4, identifying future uses for the project areas, and involving key stakeholders and the community in all activities. Educational seminars and short courses on how to plant saplings, manage invasive species, and monitor succession activities and benchmarks will be provided to those who are interested in getting involved with this project. It is important that the community is involved with this stage of the project because they are the ones who value and use these areas, and it may foster a deeper connection with these nature areas and the environment as a whole. The fourth year will focus on the development of a volunteer and course-based monitoring program to collect data on the research zones, leading to the creation of a database for this project that will contain seasonal data on the state of succession in each zone and transect. A digital photo archive will also be created to capture images that visually portray the year-to-year change during this project. Years 5 to 10 will consist of ongoing monitoring and management, including data collection for inclusion in the database, as well as the publication of a yearly report highlighting key research findings and data from each transect. This information will be documented in an easy-to-read format that will be made publicly available for people to read and comment on. At the end of the 10th year, the project will be assessed to determine if further management and monitoring is needed. Trent University can use this project to foster relationships with public interest groups while ensuring the nature areas stay healthy and diverse after losing many valuable trees, bringing more people to the university and demonstrating Trent's dedication to the environment. This project offers a cost-effective alternative to inoculating all 10,000 or so ash trees on campus, and an opportunity to study forest gap dynamics and their influences on species composition and competition. This project also ensures that the aesthetic values of the Wildlife Sanctuary Nature Area and the Lady Eden Drumlin Nature Area are not degraded, which is an important value to those who use the trails for recreation. Through this project, emerald ash borer resistant ash trees would be identified within these zones, which could be used by the university to start a seed bank of resistant ash varieties that could help repopulate some areas in the future.